Today we have 4 of the scariest ghost stories taken from Reddit. Please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for a feast of grim and grisly content. I am your host, Severed Soul. Reddit user Grace XS, my childhood fears. Okay, first up, I have some other stories too from my time living in this house, but this is the first one I'm posting. Mum's home that I grew up in has always been haunted. Every day and night there's very loud footsteps, and occasionally something more spooky would happen, like hearing voices, etc. I'm not the only one who's experienced these things. My mum, dad, boyfriend, and even some of my friends have heard some really weird stuff. But there was one thing in particular that would terrify me the most. Almost every night while I lay in bed, I would experience this gut-wrenching, heart-pounding fear, and think that I was just being ridiculous due to my fear of the dark. But I could swear that I saw a young girl in my room in the shadows, usually under my bed. She had dark hair, pale skin, and big, wide black eyes. I would be almost hyperventilating under my covers, peeking out at her through my tiny breathing hole. I would lay there paralysed with fear, until I either eventually made a mad dash to my mum's bedroom, or inevitably fell asleep in my own bed. I couldn't work out if she was actually there, or if it was just me being already afraid of our creepy house and just imagining things. I thought this because nobody else ever saw her but me. The years went by, and these nightly episodes continued. It felt like I was being terrorised by this girl, but all she ever did was stare at me. My bed was right next to a mirrored cupboard, so I could see her laying under there, literally inches away from me. It still makes my skin crawl thinking about that. Anyway, it somehow got even worse as time went by. I swear that she always seemed to be the same age as me. When I was small, so was she. When I was 12 and a bit taller, so was she. I got more and more scared of her realising this. When I was about 15, basically I never slept alone at my mum's anymore. I was always visiting my dad, staying with friends, or having them stay over at mine. I eventually forgot about the creepy girl and decided that she mustn't be real. After all, there were other ghosts here that other people saw, but nobody ever mentioned her. I also did have a terrible fear of the dark when I was a kid, so that must be it, right? I started sleeping alone in my room again after a while, but that creepy feeling always remained. My mum's house just always felt that way, and I refused to look in that mirror at night ever again. Fast forward to now that I'm in my early 20s. Life is good. I live in my own place that's not haunted, but unfortunately, this story doesn't end there. My mum called me one morning, as she usually does, to say hi, but she sounded a bit off. She said, "You're going to want to hear this. Something happened last night to Steve that was really creepy." Steve is my mum's boyfriend. To cut a long story short, Steve isn't a believer in the paranormal, and always tried to rationalise the sounds we heard at night, although deep down I think they creeped him out too. Well, on this night, Steve and my mum were watching TV on the sofa, when the footsteps were much louder than ever before. Steve tried to tell Mum that someone was upstairs in her house, but she just laughed and said, "Oh, it's just the ghosts. I've been telling you, they are real." Steve went quiet, probably trying to rationalise with himself that surely ghosts aren't real. Shortly after, Mum went to bed, but Steve decided to stay up and watch some more TV. After a while, the noises became too much for him, so he turned the TV off and switched the lights off to go upstairs to get ready for bed. This is when shit got real. From the shadows of the now dark living room, Steve saw a shape begin to approach him. He climbed the stairs, going faster and faster as the figure gained on him. It was the girl. He could see her clearly now. She followed, a few meters behind him, all the way to Mum's bedroom. By this point, he was practically running, and he slammed the bedroom door firmly behind him, trying to escape to Mum's bed, much like I had many times as a kid. As Steve made it to the bed, he turned to see the door cracked open, and the girl sticking her head in through the gap. She looked straight at them for a while, before slowly leaving and closing the door behind her. With all of my hairs now standing on end, I asked my mum how old the girl was. She said, Steve said she looked to be in her early 20s. My stomach dropped, and tears streamed down my face. So, she is real, I whispered back. There was something very sinister feeling about this ghost. I think that's why I'm so creeped out and upset, as it seems that she's real. The other ghosts at my mum's house are still creepy, but none of them feel evil, like her. Before we move on to the next story, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for a feast of grim and grisly content. Reddit user False Scholar 536 Donna Pass. Last night I experienced something very disturbing on Donna Pass in Truckee, California. The area is known for being haunted as it has a rich history of death and violence, i.e. the Donna Party, the name the most famous one. Being born and raised in Reno, I've been to Truckee many times, and I've never experienced anything this disturbing. My fiance and I went to Northern California to visit his family for Christmas. We didn't leave his family's house until around 6:30 p.m, and it took us around 5 hours to drive home. By the time we got close to Truckee, I realised I'd made a mistake by not stopping for a bathroom break, because every gas station after that was closed for Christmas. By the time we hit Donna Pass at around 10:30 to 11 p.m, I felt like my bladder was going to explode in my body if we didn't stop soon. I was expecting to have to wait until we got to the Arco at the bottom of the pass, but to my surprise, there was a big rest stop at the top of the pass. I want to note that I've driven through this pass hundreds of times, and I've never once noticed this stop. The moment we pulled into the stop, I immediately felt uneasy. I felt a fight or flight instinct kick in that I've never felt in Truckee before, and I've been to Truckee specifically to investigate paranormal activity plenty of times before. However, my need to use the restroom was overwhelming and outweighed the uneasy feeling. In the parking lot was one car, a blue car. It could have been a Honda, but I honestly didn't look too closely, because the man standing next to the car, although looking completely normal and harmless, made me feel like a rabbit in the face of a wolf. I couldn't figure out why I was so scared of this man, so I dismissed it as late night paranoia and got out of the car. I had to pass the man to get to the building with the bathroom in it, but the closer I got to him, the more panic I felt. To the point where I stopped dead in my tracks and waited for my fiance to walk in front of me. He stopped when I did though, seemingly because he caught the same creepy vibe from the guy that I did, but then he walked in front of me anyways. The entire walk from the car to the building, the man almost looked through my fiance and straight at me. He had a really creepy smile on his face the entire time. This made my fiance so uncomfortable that he put his keys in between his knuckles just in case he had to fight the guy. When we walked into the building, this is where things got really spooky, really fast. As soon as we opened the doors and walked into the building, my vision became somewhat strange. I tried focusing my eyes on the signs in the building, but no matter how hard I tried, my eyes just wouldn't keep focus. It freaked me out, but I put it down to the long, dark drive, contrasting with the bright lights in the building, and I continued to walk to the women's restroom. The men's restroom was on the left, and the women's was on the right, and both had two sides to choose from. My fiancé needed to use the restroom himself, so I assumed we were going separate ways, and I ran into the left side of the women's restroom. As soon as I turned the corner, I was immediately even more creeped out, because there was toilet paper all over the floor. It looked like 3 or 4 rolls had been unravelled all over the place, but again, I dismissed it as tweakers doing weird shit at a rest stop. I took a deep breath and opened the first stall. Clogged and disgusting. So then I moved to the second stall. Clogged and disgusting. Then I moved to the third stall. As I reached for the door, I got a sinking feeling that someone was behind the door, and I backed up. I looked under the stall and saw a woman's feet. She was wearing black, small-heeled shoes with weird-looking silver buckles on them, and under her feet was what looked like a puddle of water. It looked like this woman was soaking wet, dripping water all over the place. It spooked me out, so I turned around and went to the other side of the bathroom to try the other stalls. When I got to the other side, as I was passing the mirrors, I glanced towards them, and I could see a woman following me in the reflection. She had black hair, and she was wearing a white turtleneck button-up shirt and a black skirt that was long enough to reach below the mirrors. She was soaking wet, and she had makeup on that looked like it had been painted on by someone else. By far, the creepiest feature I saw was her eyes. Seeing the dead is nothing new to me. The sensitivity runs in my family. But I've never seen a ghost that looked like this. Her eyes were greyed out, the way a corpse's eyes do a few hours after passing. I worked at a morgue a few years ago. That's the only reason I know what that looks like. Usually, when I see ghosts, they have normal eyes. But hers were different. They were just wrong. It scared me to death, so I ran into a stall and locked the door. I heard her footsteps approaching the stall, and I could see those shoes from under the door. Then, this woman started aggressively trying to open the stall door. I was frantically pulling back from the inside, while she was pulling from the outside, with the force of a living person. And then suddenly, it just stopped. I said out loud, "What the actual fuck?" and took a deep breath, then sat down to actually use the damn bathroom. Suddenly, I heard loud, fast footsteps coming from outside of the bathroom to the side I was on, and saw brown leather boots running into the bathroom towards the stall I was in. By this point, I'd had enough of all the ghost crap. So I stood up, closed my eyes, and ran out of the bathroom. My fiancé was standing outside the bathroom, apparently waiting for me because the guy outside creeped him out so bad. He didn't feel like I was safe being in the bathroom alone. He told me he was standing there the entire time waiting for me. So I told him to get me the fuck out of that building and get me home. He asked me what happened and who he heard in the bathroom with me, and why I'd said what the actual fuck. It then dawned on me that this wasn't something that only I'd experienced happening, but also something that he had heard happening. I told him I'm pretty sure I just saw a ghost and we need to leave. When we walked out of the building, the same guy was still standing there watching us with that creepy smile on his face. I looked down at his shoes, and he was wearing the same brown leather boots that I'd seen in the bathroom. When we drove away, my fiancé said, "That guy gave me serial killer vibes. He was looking at you like he was hunting you." It really freaked me out. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw that guy again in the news. When I told him about my experience in the bathroom, he said it was entirely possible that that man had hurt someone before, and that she was there trying to warn me. He also expressed that he had experienced the same weird change in vision when we walked into the building. However, again, this could be explained by the transition from the darkness into a brightly lit area. I can't get her face out of my head, and I'm worried that if that guy did hurt her, then maybe he'll hurt someone else. My fiance is a Marine veteran, and he doesn't spook easily. He's met a lot of violent murderers, so when he says he believes that man wanted to hurt me, I believe him wholeheartedly. Has anyone else experienced anything like this before? Please discuss your thoughts in the comments section. Reddit user The Dejected Angel. Church bells. This is a story that happened back in 2015 and still creeps me out to this day. For context, me, 25 male, and my cousin, 26 male, have gone to our grandma's house every school or uni break since we were kids. We'd stay there pretty much doing nothing apart from having fun and playing video games. We always shared a bedroom when we were there, and we both have our own beds. I was 15 and he was 16 at the time, and for reference, neither of us have ever suffered with sleep paralysis. This one night, we both went to the bedroom around midnight, closed the door, turned the lights off, and went to bed. Sometime later, my cousin needed to get up to go and have a pee, so he turned the lights on and went to use the bathroom. He woke me up in the process, and when I checked my phone, it was about 2:30 AM. When he finished, he came back in, closed the door, turned the lights off, and got back into bed. That's when it started. Keep in mind that I was very much awake at this point, from all the commotion caused by my cousin going to use the bathroom. By the time he laid on his bed, this really deep tone, steady paced church bell started ringing inside our bedroom, right near our beds. Naturally, I freaked the fuck out, and all I could do was cover my head with my blankets to try to hide. After a few seconds, that fucking bell started to move around the room. It was moving in all directions, all around the room, even over my bed. I'm not really sure how long this lasted, but it felt like an eternity. Then it started to move towards the door. It travelled out of the bedroom into the living room. The bedrooms of the house are right next to the living room. Then it seemed to travel to the back of the house until it disappeared. The direction it was going was clear to me, as it was getting lower and lower until it finally disappeared. To this day, I have no idea where it came from, where it went to, or even what it was. After it was gone, I was too scared to say anything, so I just lay there in silence, and so did my cousin. Needless to say, I didn't get any sleep that night. The next day, when we woke up, I asked him if he also heard the bell, and he said yes, exactly the same as I did. To this day, it's an experience that creeps the hell out of both of us, and neither of us have an explanation for what happened. Reddit user Tasty Guarantee 7393. So this happened around 6 or 7 years ago in a village in North Lincolnshire in the UK. My friend, we'll call her Amy, worked as a tattoo artist and body piercer, and often ran the shop while the shop owner was out running errands, etc. I often went to sit with her while she was working, and sometimes I'd spend all day there. The shop was part of a very old row of terraced buildings. I think there were 6 altogether, which we were told used to be a bakery in the early 1900s. You walked in through the front door, and to the left was a staircase which led up to the piercing room. Directly in front of the entrance was the till, and a set of chairs where we used to chill and relax. Behind the stairway, there was a small hallway, which led to a room where paranormal and occult items were kept, including a few electrical ornaments. This is important for later on. So, on this day, me and Amy decided to open a pack of angel cards and use a crystal to ask questions. We had no clue how to read the cards. We were asking questions whilst dangling the crystal on a chain. You ask yes and no questions, and if the crystal swings in a circular motion, that means yes. If it swings backwards and forwards, that means no. We started by asking if there was anyone present with us in the room, and almost instantly, the crystal started swinging. We asked if the person was male, and again, the crystal started to swing. At this point, we started to feel quite uneasy. Amy asked if it was a good spirit, and the pendant started to swing so fast that she dropped it on the floor. Right at this moment, there was a very loud bang coming from upstairs, in the piercing room, so we went to investigate. The toilet door was shut, and the door's quite heavy, so it's usually propped open by a heavy box. However, this box was now lying on the other side of the room. This totally freaked us out, so we ran downstairs to get some fresh air. However, as we started to run down the stairs, the electrical ornaments in the other room randomly started playing. Apprehensively, we went to check, and to our horror, they weren't even plugged in. We ran out of the shop and sat on a bench opposite the front door. Understandably, we were both very shaken up. Before long, Amy's next client had arrived, so she asked me to watch the till area while she went and worked upstairs. I sat there waiting for her to come back down, when I started to feel really sick, so I went outside the front entrance to get some fresh air. As soon as I stepped out that front door, I felt something lift, and that sickening feeling just seemed to leave me. When Amy finished with her client, she came and joined me outside, and she too said that she felt sick. I hadn't even mentioned my own feeling of nausea. A couple of hours passed, and Amy didn't have any clients booked in for the rest of the day, so we sat on that bench and didn't go back into the shop. That was until it was time to close the shop. So we went back inside together, went upstairs to make sure all the instruments were inside the sterilising machine, and just had a quick tidy up. That's when, to our surprise, we could hear a man downstairs. We went downstairs, and there was a man standing there, probably about 20 years old, and fairly normal looking. He was chatting away to us, and said that he'd been in the sweet shop next door, and wanted to come in to arrange a booking for a piercing. He asked us if we were okay, and we explained to him what had been happening. As we were closing up, he offered to walk us to the bus stop just around the corner. We both hesitated, and normally we would never agree to something like this. But we were both so shook up, we decided to go with him. Walking to the bus stop, we were all talking and discussing what had just happened. However, once we arrived at the bus stop, we turned to say thank you to the man, and he'd vanished. Literally, disappeared into thin air. There was absolutely nowhere to be seen, and this was a large open space, so he really couldn't have disappeared in the time it took for us to stop walking and turn around. During the bus ride home, me and Amy suddenly both felt so overwhelmed by feelings of sadness. We both started to cry, and these negative emotions stayed with us both for quite some time. Amy spoke to her boss about what had happened, as he's interested in demons, the paranormal, the occult, etc. And he asked where the crystals and cards were. They were still at the shop, so he took them and put them in a cupboard with an Ouija board and wrapped them all in a holy cloth. At this point, we thought that was it. But that night, I had the most terrifying, vivid nightmares I've ever had in my life. All I can remember from them now is total blackness, with red dots spinning around as if they were circling me. The days after, me and Amy went from talking all day, every day, to gradually just the odd message. That was until she rang me to tell me that her boss had checked the CCTV footage from that day. What she told me on the phone absolutely chilled me to my core. There never was a man at the shop that day. The CCTV footage showed me and Amy talking and looking at something, but there was nobody else there. Also, we later found out that the sweet shop was closed that day, so he can't have been in there. Since then, we learned that the bakery from the 1900s had burned down, and a mother and daughter had died in the fire. This probably explains why there was such a negative feeling around the place. The following week, the Ouija board, the crystals, and the cards all went missing from the cupboard. Amy and her boss relocated to a new shop shortly after, but during the move, the items were never found. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please discuss your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for a feast of grim and grisly content. I'm your host, Severed Soul.